All right, ready, Bodie? So with our handsome Mr. B, we'll do some find it's. I know the lovelies had just done a little rotation. Good job. Ready? Find it. He's feeling quite good today. Ready? Find it. He's too cute. Ready? Bodie. Here. Yes, what a good boy. So smart. So I noticed, I remember you guys had mentioned that he's still having a little bit of a hard time sometimes with a bit pulling. So remember too that with your handsome guy, a lot of times pulling tends to be reinforcing to the pups. So pulling, if it gets you to the next bush, chewing is optional. If pulling gets you to the next cool thing, then pulling was indeed reinforced. So even though you guys are trying your darndest to not have him pull, there's going to be moments where puppies do move at a much faster rate than we do. They've got their gorgeous little 4 legs to rock, and we tend to go a little slower. So this doesn't mean that you have to increase your rate and now start running with your puppy. Nice check-in, sir. But I would highly recommend that if he is having a harder time on a regular 6-foot leash, I find it can be really helpful to use, for example, a longer training lead that might be 10 to 15 feet. 12 is fine too. I actually tend to walk my guys on a longer leash. He's like, did you throw it? I like to, oh my goodness, chew them. Bodie, here. I like to have my dogs, you got it? Oh my goodness, chewing is so hard when you're trotting around. Good job right there. So with my boys, as I was mentioning, I tend to go with a longer lead. The reason behind that is we tend to be walking, doing sniffy walks, as well as doing check-ins and focus work with like some nice loose leash walking or heel work, whatever you want to call it. So for the beauties, having the longer lead, sorry, you might have to just be stationary while you're eating your snacks. Ready? We'll do a little sit. Good job. So I like using the longer lead because it allows your babe to on a safe place to do so. So this wouldn't be like by a roadway or traffic, very busy traffic zone, or where there are potentials for other harder distractions that he's not quite ready for. But I would recommend the longer lead can be nice. And maybe what I'll do is, of course, I didn't grab it. I grabbed just yours. Maybe I'll just very quickly, I know I'm going to be out of camera shot. I'll do a little find it for Mr. B so he's adorable on the film. And then I'm going to grab real quick my longer training leash. And I'm sorry I'm out of range for like just a few moments. So that way your handsome guy can do some practice with it. I know. And of course now I've gotten it all caught up in my other stuff. There we go. We almost got it. So this is my bad. I should have planned ahead. But sometimes I don't always realize what we're going to dive into all the time when we're getting situated. Ready, sir? So for long lines, I'm coming back, I promise. So for long lines, it's like, oh, it looks delicious. So some people call them drag lines, training leashes, long lines if you had horses, or lunge line. So for example, he's like, bye. I didn't throw one, but he was hopeful. Ready? Find it. So the benefit of having a longer lead, as I was mentioning, is this will allow your pup to be able to meander a little bit further off to the side or slightly behind you. And then as you're walking, they can then catch up, or you can catch them up as they go and stop to do some sniffing. Ready, sir? So the benefit of a drag lead is you could also, even within your yard or a safe place to do so, let your puppy get comfortable with it by allowing them to drag it as they're warming up in a safe place to do so. So I would not put a longer training leash, for example, onto a flat collar or a head collar especially. So when you're working with a longer lead, it should be attached to a body harness. The problem with attaching it to a collar is if your puppy were to pull and clothesline themselves by mistake, or they're running and for some reason the lead gets caught on something, which is where we want to use some caution. But if it were to get caught on something and they're not using a body harness, it could then pull on their neck and their trachea and cause, potential damage. So for safety reasons, I recommend always on a body harness. It's much safer. The other thing too is if your dog is ever going to do water sports, or for example, like go play in the lake or go swimming in the ocean or whatever it might be, is there are longer training leads like this that are not made out of nylon or cotton, but instead they're made out of, for example, boat rope. So boat rope, for example, floats on the water. So it's the same material that a lot of boats would be using for other types of ties to tether the boat to the docks. So if the rope were to fall down, it doesn't get stuck in the propeller. So floating long lines are a really, really good option, because if this regular lead, be it cotton, nylon, whatever, these are biothane, the ones that I have right now, which is cut like a rubber coating on it. The benefit to the biothane one is it allows, for example, your hands to have a little bit more grip, but you can also, with these biothane ones, wipe them down really quickly. So nylon and cotton tends to get gross, and they're a little bit harder to clean. So the benefits of the biothane leads is that they're a little bit easier to hold on to, though I would recommend, if you are working with a longer training lead, is I have found for myself and for other students, is to use, for example, workout gloves work really nice because your fingertips are out, but your hands are a little bit more protected when working with maybe, for example, a longer training lead. So ready? Bodie's like, I was ready to go that way. He's like, I was hopeful that you were throwing snacks everywhere. So the benefit of a longer training lead like this is that, let's say, for example, as Mr. B, he's like, hold up, lady, I'd like to eat it. Ready? Bodie, do a little find it right there. So there's all different ways to wrangle this. I've seen some folks where they will, for example, hang on to part of it and then let the lead out. I tend to hold it and let the lead out as I need more length for the dog. But then, for example, for some folks, I've seen them where they hold it somewhere in the middle and they let the rest of it kind of drag behind, and they give the pup more or less space as they need it. But then you do want to be careful, and for safety reasons, I would recommend to always know where your dog is relation to you, so they don't by accident clothesline you. So, but that again can even happen with a 6-foot lead. So it's just things to think about for safety. So right now, you also, for safety reasons, I do not ever take the loop and wrap it around my wrist with the rest of the lead. I typically like to put it through my thumb and then close my hand around it. It is up to you guys. If you want to loop it through your wrist, you can. Just remember that it can potentially, oh, he says, hold up, freebies, is it can potentially cause injuries to you. So you just want to be careful with how gear is used so everybody can stay safe and sound while practicing. So for Mr. B right now, this is where, for example, on a situation where he's connected and focused on me, then of course I can just have the lead a little bit more, oh, find it, a little bit shorter and not taut, but short enough where he's not getting tangled or it's not getting caught on things. But the benefit of having this longer lead is, let's say my puppy did want to go a little bit ahead, and let's pretend he wanted to go sniff something. I can let the lead out, give him more length to work with, and then he might come on back and we could work a few more skills together in this little closer setup. So that's where I like to do a little bit of both, because let's say, again, something cool up ahead, he wants to go sniff and check it out, which is perfectly fine. I let him have, oh my gosh, chewing. I'd let him have more of that leeway. Good job. And then I collect up the gear to a length that is comfortable, again, being nearby. This is why I don't recommend a super long training lead, because the more length you have, the more awkward it might be for you to rein it in. So this one, I believe, is 15 feet, which might be the happy size for most. Some folks maybe prefer a 10 or a 12. So the nice thing about all of these training leads or long lines is they come in all different sizes. This is a thinner one, so there are some that are like a 1-inch. I prefer the thinner. Oh my gosh, chew them. The thinner is my favorite because it's more comfortable in my hands, but it's up to you guys. So again, we could be meandering. Maybe I tell him, go sniff, and maybe he's going to go and explore. And now my leash, because it's longer, I never get jostled. So the nice thing about having your puppy practice this way is you can start to get them comfortable with being near you and working this lovely loose leash walking. And it shouldn't be the leash that makes it happen anyway. So if the leash is taught to keep the dog near you, then what happens when you don't have a leash later? So I like to practice as if my dog were, for example, off gear, which right now this would be almost as if he was loose. And then he's like, hold up, there's a leash in the way. I know you helped. So if he gets a little tangled, I just move him over. He's like, there we go, beautiful. And you guys will get much more fluid with your handling skills of a training lead when it comes to like the longer leads. So practice a little bit in and around your home or yard or an open space. So the reason I'm doing some of these little find its is I just want to, visually show you how your puppy would be able to go ahead, move forward, and then you still have this length, so it's not bonking you or yanking your arm as you're practicing. Chewing is still optional. Mr. T says, worst day of my life, we are not wrestling. Terrible. So again, I might send him away. So the nice thing about this is you could also work on recalls. So you could go again, Bodie here. Yes. Oh my gosh, it fell out again. It fell out of your mouth, you silly goose. So then again, you could go back into working some nice little find its, and then you could be meandering. So if I was meandering in my yard or wherever I was practicing, I'd want to have the gear where I can see where it is. So I like bright colors. Nice. So that way if the gear was dropped or you took it off for a moment or you didn't see in relation to you where it was, that's where sometimes going for like lighter colors or bright colors can be nice versus going with darks, because the dark colors, nice job, Mr. B, is they can start to blend with the environment. So this way, as you're meandering, you could, again, as if he was off leash, but you are safely attached to your puppy, you could then build in some of this where maybe your pup is doing some loose leash walking and the leash is just there for safety, but you want to practice almost as if they were naked. This is a great way to do. He's like, that leash is tickling me. Yes, but you can see he's a little bit unsure because he's never really, I think, practiced with the drag lead or the drag line behind him. So he's like, guys, it's weird. It's like seaweed touching your leg. And if your puppy says that's disgusting, you can always collect it back up, and he does not have to have it be necessarily dragging near him. I just collect it up to a nice length where it has a little bend in the gear, and I feed again for being near my side. So again, we're working through some of this lovely loose leash walking. We're working on some very nice engagement. We're working on at times letting him go and get distracted and then be able to move without having any tension. Nice. And then he can come on back again. Good job, sir. So, but this is kind of how I go with walks for my boys. And I do work them at times independently and sometimes together. It just depends on kind of what we're trying to work on. But I would highly recommend, oh my goodness, chew them, is to, if you have multiple dogs though, make sure you're working each particular dog at their need or their rate of understanding or their capacity for feeling safe. So if one of your dogs is much more comfortable and the other one is a lot more sensitive, you may by accident, if you have a puppy, be showing the puppy how to act from the other dog. So this concept of getting another dog at times to help your other dog normally just creates double trouble. So I would highly recommend still work the beautiful boy or girl in front of you, work at their range for ability and understanding. And then if you want to throw in another friend for added fun, make sure, because I know you guys are looking into potentially another pupperoo. Bodie, here. Yes, good job. He's like, I'm making my way down. Good job. So, but if you are adding a sibling, so notice how, again, I want to make sure that I can see him in front of me and not have the lead behind me. So that way there's no potential for getting clotheslined. So, nice. Ready, sit. And this is where, back to if you're getting another, make sure you're still working each particular beauty at their comfort range or their starting point. So again, I'm going to tell them to wait. Chewing is hard. Ready, Bodie? That's right. You can get up to hawk it up and then we'll start again. Sit. So wait. So if we're throwing in some waiting, I'm not going to make it too hard. Bodie here. Yes. Oh, I see you hucked up a little bit of phlegm. So hard when we're chewing our snacks and not really chewing. We'll whop that up later. Yum, yum. You helping clean? Ready? Sit. So we're going to tell him to wait. So this is where the long line, so if he were to wiggle, I'm just going to help him. So again, wait. We'll try again from right about here so it's not too hard. Bodie here. Nice. So, but this training lead could be a nice venue for building up some movement and then still having your puppy safely attached to you. So like right here, we could rock some find its. You will just want to make sure you know your length to your lead so you're not by accident sort of throwing it really far. Like if you're playing maybe like a fetch in your backyard and you're holding on, it could be nice to sometimes, if you have to, practice. I'm not saying letting go to let your boy go frolicking in a roadway or something dangerous. But the nice thing, he's like, where'd you throw it? You missed it. It's right there. We'll find it eventually. So, but if you're, for example, practicing, you just want to make sure you know the length so you're not clotheslining him or he's not sort of jostling you. Ready? Find it. If though, let's say I asked for the recall, nothing happened, I wouldn't reel him in like a fish, but I would, for example, stop where he's at and then walk down my leash to get closer to him and try to get his focus from there. So if, let's say, for pretend, let's say again, I called my dog, I said the here, nothing happened, and we're just pretending he's busy, I would then walk down my leash so he can't get further away. And then from here, I would regain my puppy's attention. And then I'd go again and refocus him on me and then feed for this very nice connection. Smart boy. But if every time, let's say, for example, I pulled him in like a fish, I reeled him in, then he's going to think that maybe the only time I can function is when I pull on gear to get him to check in. And then later, if he's going to be a naked man, he may not respond because he thinks the only time you can do a recall is if when you feel tension. So, oh my goodness, that's very nice. So if your puppies, let's say, for example, always feel pressure or connection or jostling with equipment, when your dog is off of gear, they may not think it's the same exercise. So I like to, again, the gear might be on for safety, but it's not the thing that's going to create the behavior or the response from the dog. Oh, what a smart man. I know those wilds, they just want to come out and wrestle again. Good job, Mr. Handsome. So maybe what we'll do is we'll give Mr. B a little breather from the longer training lead and working some of these skills, and then we'll work a little bit with some other behavior too. So we'll give him a little find it right there. What a smart boy. We'll give him a little break and move on to some other fun stuff. He says all the morsels are scrumptious.